The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and Tua T Fitness.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Your friend and mine, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Give it to me, Tom.
I cannot recommend that you go heli skiing, Mr. Wayne. The funniest / only funny scene in the movie.
Yes, I swear to God, this movie has no joy.
So well done, Tom Lennon, for cutting through all the cerebral crap and producing a genuinely satisfying comic moment.
Right.
It's worth all those years you were stuck on the Odd
And it's funny that
Couple.
he's able to be as funny as he is in that moment.
Yeah.
Playing it completely straight.
I think the only thing that comes...
Like if you blinked, you'd wouldn't realize it was Tom Lennon.
No. But I remember that scene as a high point of the movie, and that says a lot about this movie.
That says a lot about the movie.
Because that is...
So what
that
I'm
is
curious about...
an aside.
Yeah.
That's half a
And
scene.
what I'm curious about more than anything... Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, Tom and I are here to discuss the 2012 sequel, The Dark Knight Rises, directed by, of course, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
I think we spoke to The Dark Knight being at 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
We go down to 87% on Rotten Tomatoes.
For this?
Which to me,
That's not a big
for
drop.
The Dark Knight Rises. It's right. And I think it speaks to the... Didn't we discuss this in our last episode of sort of, well, Nolan did a magic trick? Like
yeah,
he just sort of...
He made...
You know, he did the Force Wave. He did an Obi-Wan. Like, you're going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, a kind of Kaiser Soze... The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people that The Dark Knight
Yeah.
Rises did not exist.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, we talked...
So this is what I'm wondering about. Do you think we are in the minority? Do you think we're gonna... We both listed this, right, as a bad movie.
Yeah, we were of... I mean, we're each other's...
We are of like minds.
We're each other's control experiment for
Right.
feeling weird about not liking this movie as much as we
Because
think we should.
I had said that I don't think I could even admit to myself the first
Yeah.
time I saw it that I could admit that it was not a good movie.
Yeah,
Even though I had this sinking feeling, like, even though I knew objectively that it does not reach a level at all anywhere near the two movies that precede it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we just have to. I think we have to accept that and move on, really, because I think, I think there's an inclination to give this movie a pass for reasons other than the content and execution of what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine, but it's, there's no way to see it as anything other than the weak link in this trilogy.
In the series, to me, right. Like, we are of like minds. And, I'm looking at my notes here because the movie that preceded it had a budget of $185 million. This goes to $250 million to make this fucking thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty much exactly like the last movie. The last movie, I think its opening weekend was like 158. This was 160.8 million. In the USA, the movie that preceded it did better by a bit. It made over $500 million. This one came in at $448 million, 448.1. But they both made $1 billion worldwide, cumulatively.
It's stuck in a difficult place, this movie, for lots of reasons. There's the kind of natural inclination of a part 3 in a trilogy to circle back to the original movie, which is
which I didn't like in this.
no,
one,
no, I
you
don't.
know,
No, I think it's
I was
these.
like,
These
move
are all
on.
weaknesses. I'll tell you when I'm talking about a success. I'll preface it. Don't worry.
Okay, fine.
This is all weaknesses. Okay.
Go ahead.
But also the need to, because of the critical and financial success of The Dark Knight, to double down on that movie. So what you get is a pale imitation
Yeah, right.
of both movies, and a movie that doesn't stand up in its own right.
On its own.
You know, and in addition to the fact that, you know, some of that weird intertextuality that we saw in The Dark Knight, where, you know, there's scenes that are straight out of Michael Mann's Heat. There's a bit of The Godfather Part 2 here.
Right.
I mean, this is that kind of exponentiality. Sorry, that kind of intertextuality has grown exponentially in this movie, where it's so fragmented. There are so many bits of other Batman movies, other movies, just kind of diluting this. You know, diluting the individual experience of this movie for me.
Do you think that was? Do you think any of that's intentional on Nolan's part? The callback to other films, like is it an homage or?
Well, starting at the very beginning of the movie, I'm
Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure the Bond stuff is intentional.
Okay.
To say that the cold open is a Bond-like cold open is something of an understatement, considering
very
that,
much, yes.
that it is more accurately described as the cold opens of Moonraker and License to Kill combined.
I also think it has a little bit of an Octopussy vibe.
Hey,
the end of Octopussy.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah.
I was thinking solely in terms of cold opens, but you're absolutely right.
Right.
I didn't think about the plane-based finales of the Bond movies.
How could you
Because
not, Tom? By the way,
what happens
we're
in
only at
License
6
to
minutes,
Kill
56
happens
seconds.
here.
Yeah. We're only at 6 minutes, 56 seconds before we brought up Bond.
And I am sympathetic. I think, looking back, because this is just so ridiculously, you know, a Bond-style cold open, to the point of plagiarism, I start to think that Christopher Nolan didn't know whether he'd make another big blockbuster movie at this point, and he just wanted to.
Oh, come on!
I don't know. I'm trying to think about why you would. I mean, you know, I don't think he saw Tenet in his future, where he was able to make an even more Bond-esque movie than this.
I'll say.
Because there's no other reason why you would go so heavily on the Bond imagery here.
But plus, let me ask you this. Don't they fuck that beginning scene up with when they cut the plane loose? You never see the plane hit the ground.
You may well be right.
I fucking hate that. That's ridiculous. You're going to go through all of that and then not let us see the plane hit the ground?
If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really understand what's going on in that scene. And
yeah,
I know
right.
that they were. I don't know why
not wrong.
suddenly Littlefinger from Game of Thrones gets in the plane and decides he wants to shoot everyone but one person. Like, I don't know. I don't even know who that guy is. I had to look on IMDb to find out he was CIA. I don't know. I didn't know who that character is, and he doesn't appear again in the movie. And he's the great Aidan
First of all,
Gillen.
I think of him.
You know?
I think of him. Yeah, I think of him. First of all, you know, I get very excited because there's two people from The Wire in this movie, and he's one of them.
That is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, of course, he is the mayor from The Wire.
What I don't get is how is giving the doctor's blood to somebody else? Are they trying to make the authorities think that
he died?
That he died, right?
That is my understanding.
But-
yeah.
Well, I mean, you got blood? You need dental records or something. Don't you?
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget this does.
This is probably why they didn't show us the fucking crash because when it landed, maybe they couldn't get an explosion or they didn't want it. Clearly, they couldn't have wanted an explosion because if it's an explosion, blood's burned up. You're not going to find that DNA.
And let's not forget that we don't call back to this storyline till halfway through the movie. The next time
Okay.
we say see
Plus,
Doctor,
we all know you need the dental records thanks to Halloween 2.
good reference. I like it.
Thank you.
So you know the idea that this Nolan thought this was his last chance to do a you know a full on Bond cold open is my only explanation. I think they're trying to recreate some of the magic of the first scene of The Dark Knight. I think they're going for a similar kind of set piece, but they're ignoring literally all the things that make that set piece
That
good,
work.
including like absolute clarity about what's going on, which is
Yes.
like what holds that scene together. Like it twists and turns, but you know what's happening at every stage of the way.
But you're not confused.
We can't even come up with a narrative of that scene between us.
I know. And it's not like, I mean, we see a lot of movies, you know?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't. I don't think this is our problem in this context.
Exactly.
And you know, in I guess as well, you know, following the pattern of Dark Knight, this is where it's the cold open where we get the villain reveal, as it were. And I think they're going for a classic sequel inversion here, because the first thing that Bane mentions is what matters is our plan. Now, bear in mind that in the previous movie, the Joker has a line which is, "Do I look like a man with a plan?"
Right, exactly.
So I think they're they're trying to they're both doubling down and insisting that this is different at the same time. So a lot of mixed messages here.
But also, the idea of Bane with a plan. I mean, if you're going to bring that up in your first scene, you want the plan to wow the audience. I don't think any of this portion of this plan, it certainly doesn't wow me.
It's also not his plan.
That's true.
He's a henchman.
You're right.
Spoiler
he is a
alert,
henchman.
he's just a henchman.
Yeah.
Who can easily be killed. As he was killed in the better Batman and Robin by ripping his mask off. His Achilles heel, if you've seen Batman and Robin, which I imagine few people who watched this movie did, we already know how he's going to die before the movie starts.
Yeah.
Batman and Robin showed us it is very easy to kill this man. Actually, Batman and Robin told us everything we need to know about how Bane ends up in this movie. 1, he's just a henchman. 2, you can turn off his mask and kill him. Right?
Yeah. You're not wrong.
What do you feel? I'm interested to hear whether you have any positive things to say about Bane, because I'm really struggling.
Ooh. This is a completely valid point.
I don't dislike Tom Hardy.
I was just going to say, because when you hear, before this movie comes out, when you hear Tom Hardy's going to be Bane, at least I thought to myself, oh, I like that idea. And then when you see pictures of him, and he's, I mean, as big as he is.
Right. I mean, he's done...
This should work.
He's definitely done the work physically for this.
Yeah.
Here's my feelings, and see you know where you might agree or disagree here. Tom Hardy is an eccentric actor.
Yes.
Often his eccentricities help his characterization in movies. In this instance, all of his eccentricities harm the portrayal of the character. So I don't understand why he decided that he wanted Bane, with his backstory, which is crystal clear, to be suave sounding, like a James Mason or a Sean Connery kind of, or even touches of Patrick Stewart, who he played a clone of in Star Trek Nemesis.
There you go.
Why So he played a suave and elderly sounding. This is a young man who sounds as if he's conservatively 75.
Oh, I'm not sure I went there.
Okay, maybe that's just me, but the heavy
But he does sound like an electronic butler.
Okay, maybe that's what. Maybe we can agree on that.
Yeah.
And physically,
You know when they download Michael Goff into Max Headroom?
yes, I remember. Yes.
It's kind of like that.
Believe it or not, I remember. There are moments in this movie where I would have preferred Max Headroom, Alfred.
Yeah.
But anyway, also physically, why he chooses to hold his lapels like William Hartnell's Doctor Who.
I know. I have notes about that too. Yeah.
So basically, to sum up what I'm saying is like none of those choices, physical and vocal, he makes seem in any way to fit the character on paper.
Do you even think because part of the vocal isn't his choice, right? Because it had to have been some sort of post-production modulation.
Well, this is
right?
a good point. I mean, he's obviously not responsible for how muffled his voice sounds or how much louder the recording is than any other sound in the movie. I mean, that's a behind-the-scenes problem. And an overall problem in this movie. I guess one of the kind of cliches around this movie is you can't hear what the characters are saying. That's actually not true. You hear... I
agree with that, yeah.
You hear exactly what Bane is saying, but it's too loud. Christian Bale is too low. There's no balance. Audio balance is the problem.
So when they're talking to each other, you're saying, ow, huh? Ow, huh?
I realize that Christopher Nolan couldn't give a shit about home media, but
right.
If you're watching this at home on TV, you do not know where to put that volume button at any given time. And you add Michael Caine with his uncontextually loud moments in there, you have no chance. Right? It's I really do think Christopher Nolan needs a separate an assistant director devoted solely to sound.
Maybe.
He needs to divide up.
This is one of my biggest complaints about Tenet. Like, if you're going to make a fucking movie about temporal time displacement, don't have your underscore so loud that you can't hear the characters fucking explaining the temporal time displacement.
I
digress.
Well, no, it's not a digression. I think you're getting to the heart of this, whether it's him interfering and ruining good sound editors' work or he just has bad sound editors, I don't know, but it's a real problem.
Yeah, it is.
He lets his actors mumble and tries to overcompensate by recording other actors too high.
Yeah.
And that when you said electronic butler, immediately there's a moment in this movie, very late on in the movie, where Batman returns to Gotham. And Bane thinks that he's lying in a well prison halfway across the world. Who knows where that is?
Yeah,
with Tom Conti and a blind Yoda
and a blind yeah,
and he says impossible, and I thought, are we in a Transformers cartoon from the 80s? Just the quality of that sound. It's like Optimus Prime is suddenly made an appearance in the movie. It's really strange. So there's nowhere for this character to excuse the pun, breathe.
To breathe?
Do you have any additional or conflicting thoughts?
Well, I guess just to add on to what I was saying before, because on paper, all of this seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
And, like, look, he does physically transform himself.
Yeah, you cannot disagree with that.
And I can't disagree with that, but at the same time, for some reason on the last couple of days, I've just been thinking about, and I think this might speak to the pretentiousness of Nolan at times, But I thought, why didn't anybody contact The Rock?
You've answered your own question there. They feel like they wouldn't stoop that low. But it's not stooping
my point
low.
is, it's not a stoop. Yeah, exactly.
No, but a pretentious person would think that it's a stoop.
Yeah.
I have a note very early on in this movie when, back to the cold open. We're never going to get out of this cold open. Bane.
I'll give you 60 seconds. Go.
Bane says, "The fire rises."
Right.
And I thought, you know what? This is the kind of movie that has the title of the movie in the dialogue, but acts like it would never stoop so low as to have the title in the dialogue.
You're right. Yes. Yes.
And so I think people like The Rock or Vin Diesel or, hey, Jason Statham.
Mm-hmm.
All these people who you get more of a henchman vibe from. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Like a traditional heavy, not a, quirky method character actor. Would have been better, and
that's
the
the
reveal
thing
would
that
have made
doesn't
more
work the
sense.
most. Yeah, because when you hire Tom Hardy, you do expect it to be Bane's plan. You don't want Tom Hardy to be the henchman.
No.
All right.
I mean,
let's take a break.
Just before we do, I will say that this
ahead.
is yet another occasion where I think, you saying The Rock, you would essentially be like casting Arnold Schwarzenegger in Batman and Robin.
I know.
It's the same thing, isn't it? You take this kind of known action hero and you give him a kind of emotional gravitas and tragic backstory. So, once again, Batman and Robin, an improvement on The Dark Knight Rises. Hey, I've got to dig myself out of this hole. So if I get a chance to mention Batman and Robin doing something better than this movie, I'm doing it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, argue about our argument amongst yourselves, and we'll be right back after this.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here, of course, discussing The Dark Knight Rises. All right, Tom, when we last left, we've been giving a lot of play to Tom Hardy.
Yes.
Sort of the nature of Christopher Nolan and what we might have done differently there.
Yeah.
I'd like to move on to the women in this film.
The Catwomen?
Plural.
No, Catwoman. Just one.
So yeah, we have Catwoman and we have the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. Or Raj?
Spoiler alert. As if anyone who hasn't seen this movie will listen to this podcast and then choose to pay $2.99 to rent this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean...
So, because we gave a little play in our first segment, we were talking about bringing the first movie back.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So, and that's all at play with that character.
Well, Liam well, how do you say it? Raj Al Ghul? No, El
Yeah,
Raj
Raz or
Ghul.
Raj, I don't know.
Anyway, Ghost Liam Neeson.
Oh, that's right. We have Force Liam Neeson.
Did you say Force Liam Neeson?
Yeah.
Force or forced?
For
Because I have a note
both.
say
Both.
I have a note saying that this is the Force Ghost cameo that he never got in the Star Wars
Right.
prequel trilogy. Like, did you know there was actually a scene written where Qui-Gon? Why does he play characters whose names you can't pronounce? Anyway, Qui-Gon comes.
Qui-Gon?
Qui-Gon comes back as a Force Ghost, and they decided to cut it from the movie.
Oh, that was a bridge too far for Lucas.
Which he then replaced with a scene with people talking about that happening without it actually happening.
Right.
So it was like yes, finally Liam Neeson gets the Force Ghost cameo that was cut from the prequel trilogy, but it's a very strange device. I mean, we're not talking about you. You asked me about the women. I'm talking about Liam Neeson. But let me just say,
Okay.
it's a very strange device to have a red herring about that character coming back from the dead. That is a red herring in someone's mind.
Right.
So we're meant to believe that Bruce Wayne convinces himself somehow that this character is behind things in his mind, but we see the ghost, so the audience believe that that's what's happening, so that the reveals of Bane and his daughter are less predictable.
Does anybody
As if that could ever be predictable.
Does anybody else feel like they need a nap after that explanation?
But anyway, let's go on.
This is why it doesn't work, that movie. But all right. But
So,
the original question, like, I mean,
Yeah.
so
Catwoman.
for instance, do you like Anne Hathaway?
I like Anne Hathaway in general, and specifically
Yeah, I do too.
in this movie. I think she's a very good choice. Especially, I'm glad
I
that
think it only pales in comparison because of Michelle Pfeiffer
right. I
and
appreciate
how better written that character was.
completely. I appreciate that they didn't pick another Michelle Pfeiffer type.
Yeah.
I like that they've chosen someone who's physically different, a different kind of actor, all that sort of stuff. The pros that are here for me is, you still get a lot of the badassery that you want with that character. Like a propensity for violence and cool kind of kicking people, breaking people's wrists, that kind of stuff. I like that.
And I like those moments. I do too.
You have the fact that she turns.
I like when Batman says, "Don't kill anybody," and she's genuinely disappointed.
Yeah, I like there's something going on here with gender stereotypes. Her way of like getting out of trouble is to pretend to be like a damsel in distress, but we know she's not. That's good,
Right.
But that's kind of where it ends. And you pointed to the writing. The writing is the problem here.
Because that's the only trick in her bag. That's the only thing we're given. Is
making her a cat burglar is a strange choice. It makes it feel safe and quaint. Also, the idea that where I think it falls down and compared to the Michelle Pfeiffer characterization, on both behind and in front of the camera. It went as far as kind of reversing the gaze and turning male objectification on itself. And that doesn't happen here. I always feel like we're objectifying Anne Hathaway through the camera. No explanation is given
right
why she's in a leather catsuit, for instance, except to see Anne Hathaway in a leather catsuit.
Right.
She is very clunkily riding the Bat-sickle, and I can only imagine it's just to see her bend over in a catsuit.
Bat-sickle.
She's just bending over in a catsuit.
Yeah.
That's the limit of that, I think. So I never really get a sense that all that great stuff they do with Catwoman in Batman Returns of like punishing men for objectifying her, that doesn't happen here.
No, yeah.
And also there's a sense that she has to be redeemed, which I think is is kind of an offensive notion that she has to be redeemed by other
By
male
men.
characters.
Right.
And in the end of the movie, she's Batman's
Housewife?
wife, Batman's ghost wife, ghost wife. Would a shot of ghost Liam Neeson have been out of place in the final frame of the movie, just in the background, as either Raj Al Ghul or Gucci Gon?
Gucci.
I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's
All
how
right.
I feel.
Where do you
I feel
stand
about
on
that.
And how do you stand on Marion Cotillard?
I mean, she's distractingly beautiful woman.
Yes.
As to
yeah.
what,
But the character is
wishy-washy.
Huh?
Wishy-washy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that some of that wishy-washiness of the character is turned into a, I think, quite decent villain reveal. I mean, at some point in the movie,
All right.
you can see that twist coming, because, she's... And, the movie is just showing its hand too much because she's getting herself so into the inner circle. You're like, she's got to be the villain.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise,
yeah.
this movie has no third act or fifth act.
And I never
or whatever.
for a second believed the small child in the well prison was Bane.
Do you even believe... That's true. Do you believe anything about that well prison? That's straight out of a Mummy or late Indiana Jones movie. That is not in the Batman world.
The universe.
Looking back at it, I remember thinking at the time, like this feels really out of place. This is it's a really jarring shift of imagery.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of become one of my favorite parts of the movie, solely down to an actor whose work I've always admired, which is Tom Conti.
Tom Conti, yeah,
who has made a career. Yeah, a British guy who's made a career sort of doing comedy foreign characters, and here he doesn't disappoint.
Right. Yeah, no.
And that you get to see you get to see the prisoners do a piece of contemporary pop-up dance theater, which is nice, and it's that feeling that actually this is the tone of the movie. The movie's just not willing to admit that this is the tone of the movie. It's another one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, you're in a well prison with Tom Conti is about where this movie is. It just refuses to admit that it's...
See, that's interesting because I don't think you're completely wrong, but I also found myself, especially upon this viewing, the only person I found interesting in this movie is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his character.
He is also the only person who does anything active.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so there's that, and he's, I don't. It's a bit of a trope, the idea of say a group of cops. You got 5 people and 4 are complete idiots, and there's the one guy who can see through the veil of the mystery of the criminals or whatever, and knows where to go go get Gordon, that kind of thing.
It's really funny you say that, because one of the big pitfalls of this movie is how badly it continues the story of some of the legacy characters who have been at the heart of the past 2 movies, which are Jim Gordon and Alfred. And the Jim in relation to Blake, and I wonder whether this is again just to give Joseph Gordon-Levitt something to do, but Jim Gordon's faculties really lose him in this movie. The point at which they decide to put every single cop in the city underground.
Right.
I'm like, can you conceive of no world in which this is a trap?
Yeah, right, exactly.
The last 2 movies have all been about saying that this kind of
You
introverted.
learned no lessons from the Joker getting arrested on purpose.
It's actually been about the one of the kind of big character arcs in this series has been Jim Gordon's rise from a kind of introverted cop to the commissioner of
To the commissioner.
the commissioner of Gotham, and to have him make such bad choices continually in this movie kind of undermines all of his character arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the same is true of Alfred, because he,
So give it to us, Tom. Here,
well, okay, so
let's talk about weeping Alfred.
I'd forgotten how he comes in crying, like he comes in hot crying. Right, he's never not crying in this movie, and I'm gonna frame this by saying I love Michael Caine.
Who doesn't?
I
Obviously,
love
yes, of
teary-eyed
course.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
I mean, from the moment he did his, Get Carter, she was only 16 years old. This is a man who does a good kind of teary breakdown moment. Like he's got real skills at that. But that's all they ask him to do is to tell teary-eyed stories and to kind of mourn characters. He's not in this movie.
I was just gonna say, at a certain point, he just disappears because
He
he
catches
says,
the retirement fever.
Yeah,
And-
and so I'm just thinking of all the shit you've put up with that Bruce Wayne has conceived to do on behalf of Gotham, and now you're saying this is just too much, sir.
You figure
It
that
doesn't
behind
feel very motivated. It just
No.
doesn't, like, it's just, that's a bad bit of writing there to me.
it's
I don't get, it just doesn't make sense.
it's both a bad and a good bit of writing in that the screenwriters are sensible enough to realize that what's going to happen in this movie, dealing with Alfred being there too, is too much. But the bad part of it is, why the fuck are we focusing on people other than Alfred?
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck am I focusing on Matthew fucking Modine as whoever this guy is?
I know, right.
Like, he has the most developed character arc in the movie, at the
Yes.
expense of characters that you
Of everybody
actually want
else.
to see develop and grow and change.
Right. And that's the
nothing
thing about
again.
this movie.
Nothing
It's
against Matthew
so-
Modine. Nothing.
With my two children, Matthew and Modine.
Don't you Jiminy Glick me. Well, Jiminy Glick would be great in a Christopher Nolan movie, because he goes up very high and then very, very low.
So, but I think it's interesting that you said it's both a bad and a good piece of writing, because I think that's what's at the heart of this movie. Ideas that should be good
Yes.
that are written poorly.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, Batman. Batman
Not
himself.
nominally the star of this movie, yet we've not spoken about him
We haven't
once.
spoken about him yet. So, doesn't it seem like a good idea to have Batman not at his best? The idea of him being humbled physically,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, right.
But then
I know
you
what you
have,
mean.
you know what I mean? But then you have Batman who can't fight, and so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it ends up
'Cause-
just shooting themselves in the foot.
This is not to let the Dark Knight off the hook.
He
They
throws two punches against Bane in those fucking sewers, and then he's breathing so heavy he needs a fucking oxygen mask.
There's literally minutes in this movie of Batman being beaten within an inch of his life.
Yeah, right.
That is not an effective superhero.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
I dig everything that you're saying. And I got two things to add on to that. One is to go back to my quotable. Like,
Right.
if Christopher Nolan watches his movies back, and I don't think he does, otherwise he would have sorted out his sound problems by now.
Mm-hmm.
He could have looked to that scene in the doctor's office and says, we can do real world Batman without it being bleak and apocalyptic. Like we can
right.
have fun with this idea. We can say,
doesn't
no,
have
you have
to-
no knees.
Yeah,
You know?
he doesn't
It's
have
like-
to tear his ACL.
It was my
You
great
know?
moment. It's like you have no knee cartilage. You know, all that sort of stuff. You can do it with a lighter touch and a sense of fun. And certainly I don't
Because
want to let
once
the
you
dark...
introduce that, by the way, like I don't care how long you sit in a rope in Well Prison or how many push-ups you do, you're not going to beat Bane. If you don't have your kneecaps,
You
you're
just
fucked.
turn his mask off. Again,
That's
Batman and
true.
Robin solved this problem. You turn his mask off. I wish he was monosyllabic in this movie, I'll tell you that. But but I don't want to let The Dark Knight off the hook because it definitely set in motion the tropes of Batman doesn't want to be Batman. He's not good at being Batman. He periodically
yeah.
opts out of being Batman. That mold is set. The problem is we never see another kind of Batman in this movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's a major problem there. But I think you're absolutely right. It's again, it's a be careful what you wish for situation. But you can do those things without bumming everyone out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things, this movie has such a lack of sense of humor that
Oh yeah.
there are unironic allusions to the Batman TV movie from the 1960s. Like, all content, no comedy. Like the time,
Yeah.
it's the time bomb.
Oh,
The
this
Batman
time
then
bomb.
flies over the bay is a set piece from the Batman 60s, probably the most famous set piece from the
Yeah,
Adam
it
West
is.
movie, the Some Days You Can't Get Rid of a Bomb. Like everywhere he looks, there's children or nuns. Like he just but it's just Adam
Right.
West running around with a bomb with like a sparkler on it that says bomb. So, but the fact that this movie does those jokes as serious things that you're meant to take seriously just says it all about the vacuum of fun at the center of this movie.
Right. Well, and I also have a problem with once you decide to you referenced the 60s Batman with the fuse, and this movie basically has the same thing, but it takes a month. You know, so that Batman can get back from India or wherever the fuck he is. Ugh. I mean, it just... at one point, I wrote, one of my notes is, 2 period, long period.
Yeah, a full 15 minutes longer than the last movie, and yet, I mean, you know, we were very critical of the number of set pieces in the last movie,
Yeah.
but at least it passed the time.
Right.
This movie has what, like 3 set pieces in.
Yes, exactly.
It's like a sort of existential version of Speed. Without any of the associated pleasures of that
without
extraordinarily
anything
great
that
movie.
makes Speed fun to watch.
Yeah, because Speed is like 3. Right, it's 3 set pieces. It's the elevator, the bus, and the subway. That's it.
Right.
That's all you
and
got.
that's it.
And here you've got, what have you got? I guess if you discount the cold open because it's from a Bond film, you've got.
You have Batman coming back, but even that's after showing him as an invalid.
I want to talk. Just can I take a moment to talk about the first time I saw this movie?
A quick moment.
Okay, it might not be quick.
Let's take a break then.
No. Okay, so yeah. Okay, let's take a break then. All right.
I don't want to stunt you, Tom. I want you to be able to talk as long as you want.
Well,
but...
yeah, I was gonna say, you know, with broadcast standards, we don't have we can decide where it goes, but I'll save it until after the break.
All right, we'll take a break, everyone,
I don't
and
want
then we'll
people
come
want
back.
to hear where they get fitness beer or what else do we sell? Fitness beer.
Fitness beer. We sell another podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the other thing we sell? Fitness beer and, well, you'll find out.
coffee. We'll be
We
right
create.
back. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. We are back. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Tom and I are here discussing The Dark Knight Rises, directed by Christopher Nolan. Tom,
Yes.
you were going to tell us about the first viewing of this movie.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly say, by the way, on my way home from my first viewing, did not feel compelled to go see it again.
You probably didn't have time either.
Yeah, not enough hours in the day.
It's like it was morning when I went in here. So first, I saw this in a movie in one of those luxury movie theaters where they serve food to your seats. Something that I guess during COVID that's definitely going to go out of fashion for a while.
Yeah.
But it probably should anyway, because I think it complicates the movie experience.
It does. I agree.
And I was, and so let's face it, this movie is not great at communicating what's going on.
Oh, yeah, no.
And there's a period early on in the movie where you also need to know what happened in between these two movies. Because let's not forget, this, despite having a, Karate Kid 2 style, a scene that happens at the end of the last movie, picks up immediately, and then we skip 8 years.
Yes.
Okay. So, when Alfred is talking to Bruce Wayne and he says, "Do you remember those 7 years when you were away?" And he starts to tell that story. So someone was getting brought hummus who was with me, right? So I was distracted, and I get it's always hummus, It's like, who the fuck wants to eat hummus
at a movie?
Anyway,
and, that great movie snack, hummus.
I have your baba ganoush, sir. Would you like some butter on your baba ganoush?
Oh, that's a band name, Buttered Baba Ganoush.
And I thought Alfred was saying, "You've been gone for 7 years," because I remember someone saying, I remember one of the many characters in the Harvey Dent Day scene saying it was 8 years later. So I was doing the math in my head, and I thought he was saying, "Oh, Batman after the end of Dark Knight went away for 7 years, and he's been back for 1 year." So
it is confusing, though. You're
right.
Right. Yeah.
But now I look at it and I think, maybe it wasn't just the hummus being delivered, because not only are they very similar amounts of times that Batman is not being Batman,
is gone
and in hiding. I also sort of thought that, it was. I was thinking maybe it's not that, like, how has he been living like this for 8 years, and why is his leg the same state of disrepair as when we left? Like, he has access. He's fucking rich. He has access to the best doctors in the world.
He has quality health care, I'm sure.
But then that it can be fixed with,
right, with an electronic brace, right? Just hey, that's good. Now I can kick walls. What?
And you know, for 1 minute until Bane breaks my back.
Right.
So yeah,
But again,
it's
in that fight, throws 2 punches out of breath. Like,
yeah.
he looks like
So
he's struggling.
so I had a whole different idea of what was going in here, but I think the movie is, it's not a very like, I see why they want that amount of time to pass. I like the fact that it brings the kind of the real world timeline and the movie's timeline sort of in sync. I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go back to the Batcave, because one of the big problems of the Dark Knight is that Wayne Manor was burned down, and
Yeah, right.
the Batcave wasn't there for them to use. So it's nice that they can go back into the Batcave and they can do the piano key
They
thing.
can do the piano stuff. They can, yeah, right.
Yeah. But I mean, it would be if he did any Batman stuff, obviously. It's just like going into the Batcave to check his emails. It's like this is not the best use of this technology that you have here. So yeah, it's very strange, but I mean, it made me think of so many moments in these movies. Made me think of all the sequels we've watched. You know, 11 minutes into this movie, we see a character looking at photos of characters who aren't in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and then that happens again later in the movie with a different character.
Right.
The immediately picking up where the last movie ended and then doing a time jump. Like, all these things make me think that this movie is falling back on a lot of hackneyed conventions, and it's always a sign that the movie doesn't quite know
Where to
what it
go.
wants to do.
Yeah, right.
And that's just borne out by the rest of the movie. It never really turns into... Also, something we've talked about before, too many characters.
Yeah.
And that is evident from, like, the first scene when they're at the Harvey Dent Day. I'm like, I didn't... It's like being at a party. It's like, I didn't get all your names. I don't know who all of you are. And then there are so many characters... Like, there are so many characters who could easily be one character. Like,
Right.
Daggett and Stryker can be
Exactly.
or Stryver. Stryker's from Airplane. Can't get anyone's name right today, but it's the movie's fault, not mine.
Of course.
They can be the
of
same
course.
person. There is no loss. It's like, I feel like they had to choose between Ben Mendelsohn and Bern Gorman, and they split the difference.
And they just said, why not both?
And I feel like, no, one of those is fine. So,
One is all you need.
yeah. So it's, yes. So that was all I had.
All right.
But I don't think it was just the Baba Ganoush.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, so what do you think of that, the last set piece? Courtroom steps. Starting with courtroom steps. That fight. Like, to your point, Matthew Modine he's the only person with an arc in this fucking movie. And then, of course,
And they kill him.
they have to show an establishing shot of him dead, which made me just say, "Oh, so he was right.
Well, I
Should have
mean,
stayed home
again,
with his family."
Well, that's it. I mean, we mentioned in the previous podcast that, you know, that the political problems of Dark Knight are really doubled up here, and you know, that set piece of seeing. So it's police fighting terrorists,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's basically like two oppressive forces battling over the city. The people of Gotham are just pawns in this fight.
Yeah, right.
We're back to this idea of, like, you know, you as the individual citizen have no role to play in your own democracy beyond staying at home and out of sight.
Beyond being a witness, right?
And then, you know, and anytime again, like in Dark Knight, anytime we see any form of democracy, like the kangaroo court that Scarecrow
So,
is the
yeah,
Joker,
right.
it's, you know, it's seen as a sham. Although I was gonna say that, you know, my only other contender for funny scene in this movie is the return of Cillian Murphy, and it's actually better than his cameo in Dark Knight, because he is actually Scarecrow this time. as opposed to we're
Right.
not quite sure whether he's Scarecrow or not. Like, it's very like you.
I think
without,
it's a given in The Dark Knight that he's Scarecrow, but
But why does Batman not recognize him?
well, what do you mean? Like you have to have a line that says, "Hey, I remember you."
But no, he treats him as if he's just some like vigilante copycat guy. They fucked that one up.
I don't
But
know. He
but
catches
here,
him. What do you want? Like,
Well, that whole scene shouldn't be there anyway because a Rottweiler gets hurt. But in this one, it's very clear. It's like, oh, he got out of Arkham Asylum, and they put him in charge of like being he's the worst possible person to be doing this
to
job.
be a
Makes
judge,
total
right?
sense.
Yeah, of course.
And then and Christopher Nolan is British, so I guarantee you this is a real reference. They do a version of a joke that was in a sketch of a British situation comedy called The League of Gentlemen, and the joke is death by. It's called the joke is
Extraordinary
called
Gentleman, or
No.
All right.
Forget just The League of Gentlemen, and it's called Death by Mau Mau, and to give you a synopsis of the joke, which all jokes should be done as synopses, I think, for maximum effect. English explorer gets caught by tribesmen in the jungle. Jungle says, death or Mau Mau. Mau Mau is we stick giant pieces of fruit up your ass.
yeah,
And then at the end he says, "Oh, I couldn't.
Death by
I don't
Mau
think
Mau.
I could handle that. I'll take death." And he says, "Death by Mau Mau." Same thing.
same thing.
So it's weird. The levels of intertextuality here are kind of spiraling out of control.
Mhm.
I think. It's very odd. And then I also saw aspects of this movie that because we in our
and
timeline.
the parts of this movie also feel like Red Dawn.
You're not wrong.
Where, yeah, like
The fact that you're not wrong is a problem.
the cops are just walking the streets, but they gotta walk the streets careful because they can't be seen, but they're gonna be seen everywhere they go. But they could still walk unhindered so long as the tank rolls by or they get behind a garbage can. Like the rules don't seem really intact.
In our own timeline, we've just done a watch along of Batman v Superman,
Correct.
and I was interested looking back at this through the prism of that movie because I thought it was chalk and cheese, apples and oranges, that they were totally different iterations of Batman, but the Gotham City football game here and the kids singing the national anthem. I mean, that is
wow.
right out of Snyder's playbook.
Yeah.
Just the focus on kids in this movie
Right.
is a source of sentimentality. But of course, the huge difference here is in the Alfred portrayal, and I do think it is partly the fault of this film that whether it's a corporate note or Zack Snyder's weird view of the world. But I can see why they wanted to pull away from the excessive sentimentality of Alfred and Batman's relationship. Because it's at a level of melodrama you've never seen before. Like crying over Bruce Wayne's grave at the end of the movie. It's like, I see why they wanted to pull back. I don't know why they went with, former member of Kraftwerk Jeremy Irons, but like, so I can definitely, I see a continuity into those movies that I'd never seen before, as well as callbacks to things like the masked ball scene from Batman Returns.
Right. Yeah.
It's so funny because when I just heard a great comment on Star Wars Minute by Alex Robinson. They're covering The Last Jedi at the moment, and he observed that John Bodega's Finn has so many built-in storylines. Like, he could go and find his parents.
Yeah, right.
He could help other stormtroopers to defect. But no, he's gonna learn a lesson about class warfare and the economy.
Yeah.
And
right.
I thought exactly the same thing here in the masked ball scene. And it's worse because it's not just potential; it's not a missed opportunity. We've seen this scene done perfectly.
Yes, right, exactly.
And we used it as a way of talking about identity and
Identity
doubling.
and duality and yeah, right.
Yeah. And yet they're talking about how a socio-economic revolution is hitting because it's post 2008 economic crisis.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? What do these two characters have to do with any
of that? Right.
So,
Oh, there's
interesting.
just so much. It's just so much missed. This movie is a miss.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm trying to find nice things to say about it, and I'm trying to coach the negative
and that's
stuff
the funny thing
in as positive terms as I can. But
that's
it's
the funny
hard.
thing, because when we did our ranking and our declaring, I think both of us even said on any given day I might tip a toe onto the good side. But the more we're talking about this movie, the more failure I'm seeing in it.
I'm over that anxiety now, I think.
I am too, like completely. This movie's not good, God damn it.
Yeah. And just, like not solving that problem of Bruce Wayne is just rich scum. It's really hard to relate to him. Like,
right.
The day after Alfred says, "I'm not gonna hang around anymore, I'm leaving."
Yeah.
Like, you retire every other week, I'm gonna retire too. Like the next day he's lying in bed waiting for Alfred to wake him up still.
Yeah.
It's like, even Lucius Fox is like, "You're answering your own door?"
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I was thinking, oh God, like Gotham should burn to the ground.
You're a bit of a piece of shit, huh?
Gotham should, and I found alternative role models here, like people I would rather have turned out to be Batman. Like, for some reason, even though previous to this, the board members at Wayne Enterprises have been depicted as, scum. Like, it's suddenly in this movie, they're the most noble, heroic characters in the movie. First of all, and you only see this if you watch this and Dark Knight back to back, but one of the board members speaks in here is the one who stands up to the Joker.
Who stands up, right.
He says, "We won't be intimidated by you." It's like, I want him to be Batman. Can he get a franchise?
Yeah.
And then the little guy with the gray hair and the blue suit who's volunteers himself. He's like, "I realize I might die here, but I would rather, I'll be the board member who stands up to you." And I'm just like, I want there you've got your Batman and your Robin.
Mm-hmm. Geriatrics style.
And it's just like that's a sad situation, I think, when you're
when your hero's not a hero.
You're looking for heroes in all the wrong places.
Right.
And your actual hero is lying in a well prison somewhere in an undisclosed part of the world,
right?
With Tom Conti and a blind guy, while some dance theater goes on around him. It's just, yeah.
Well, we haven't talked at all about Morgan Freeman and the character of Lucius Fox either. Not a lot to do in this movie, right?
No, and I guess for the final, I'm going to say twist, and by my tone, I'm putting inverted commas around that.
Yeah.
Again, he has to be represented as totally naive and stupid for any of this plot to make sense.
Right.
Because he lets the villain get to the heart
to the bomb.
To the bomb.
Or to what will become the bomb.
He literally introduces the villain to the weapon that they're going to use to blow up the city. And then all that stuff about the autopilot, which that's coming back.
And that exactly. That's coming. By the way, the scene when Alfred tells him his deepest wish is to, be getting dinner and see it, and then they show you the scene and you think to yourself, why'd they show us that scene? They're going to clearly show this at the end of the movie, which they just do. So you see
Yeah.
the scene twice.
And they make a mistake there because we're supposed to, like, Alfred does not feature when Gotham is under siege.
Right.
He does not feature at all. So it would have made way more sense if we'd have just seen him in Italy, because then it would have explained that he moved abroad. Because if he's in Gotham, why are we not... Like, how is he not wrapped up in what's going on?
He would have come back.
I don't know. It's very strange.
It's all messy.
But then,
this movie.
but also, like, the fact that it's Batman who fixes the autopilot to the Bat plane. They call it the Bat here.
Yeah.
It's like, literally Lucius Fox has nothing to do. That's really the point at which he could have, like...
All right.
Like, Batman's, like, suddenly realizes, oh, Lucius fixed the autopilot. I can survive this. Rather than him secretly fixing the autopilot and not telling anyone that he didn't. That he didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that could have been Lucius's moment. Because, I mean, you know, in The Dark Knight, for all the political problems of that scene, he does that Desmond Llewellyn in the field thing where he's actually, you know, he's not just giving
Right.
he's not just giving Bond his gadgets, he's also out there as a field agent, and he had something to do. But here, apart from fucking everything up and not saving the day. But then again, and I mentioned this last time, you know, as with Batman Begins, and this should only happen once, the finale of this movie is based around Gary Oldman bumbling around with technology as the way the day is saved.
Oh yeah, you're completely right.
Like, why would you, you know, I found that hard to take once, to be honest, him, like, remote driving the Batmobile. And in this movie, the villains have multiple Batmobiles.
They're everywhere.
So they do. It's almost like they're deliberately setting out to sabotage any notion that there's anything special about Batman. But I think you can do that without losing the kind of heroic mystique of that character. You can say that he's vulnerable and flawed, and that, you know, as you said, that he's easily broken and all that sort of stuff. You can do that without negating him as an active presence in the movie.
Yeah, right.
Because he just flies the bomb, right? That's all he
does.
That's all he does.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel differently about The Dark Knight Rises, you please let us know. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Leave us an email at everythingsequel@gmail.com. Tom, anything left?
Answering your own door? I don't. That's insulting to Morgan Freeman. He doesn't go full Uncle Remus. He goes about 75 Uncle Remus.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, for Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, I am Michael Shantz from the How Dare You Awards. You'll be hearing us next time when we pitch a sequel to Christopher Nolan's series. Say goodbye, Tom.
I see from the television you've got your taste for wanton distraction back.
Damn good television. All right, you'll be hearing from us next time, ladies and gentlemen.
And I don't mean a postcard.